So now we take up the subject of arbitration. And you may be asking yourself, why is arbitration the preferred method? Because as I mentioned, it's the preferred method for resolving international legal disputes. Well, arbitration is a form of ADR that is a technique involved for the resolution of disputes outside of the court system. And the way that arbitration works is that the parties to a dispute, perhaps the buyer and the seller of goods, refer the dispute to a panel or to an arbitrator. So either an arbitrator or an arbitration panel. And these are neutral third parties who generally have familiarity with the context of the dispute. Meaning if it is a dispute involving the commercial sale of goods, the arbitrator or arbitrators will be familiar with that topic area, with the law that applies to that topic area. They oftentimes come from that industry that's involved, and therefore they have knowledge of the industry prior to the arbitration. And the parties, after referring the matter to the arbitrator, the neutral third party, they agree to be bound by the arbitration decision. Whatever award is made in arbitration, the parties agree to be bound by it. Now, in an arbitration panel, it works a lot like a lawsuit. A third party, meaning the judge, or in this case the arbitrator, is going to review the evidence in the case and is going to come up with a decision. Now, the decision is legally binding. It binds both sides, meaning both parties are bound to do whatever it is that the arbitrator said to do. If it is to pay the full amount, they have to pay the full amount. If it is to pay nothing, then maybe that's all you get is nothing. So the arbitration decision is legally binding. And this arbitration decision will be enforceable in a court. Courts are required to enforce arbitration awards even though the court had no role in the resolution of the dispute. If I bring an arbitration award to a court, the court must, in almost all circumstances, enforce that agreement. And enforcement, as we'll see, is going to be one of the key advantages to arbitration, because a number of countries have entered into an agreement that allows arbitration awards to be enforced in that country. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. But for this takeaway, remember that arbitration is binding and enforceable. Now, one of the aspects of arbitration that are going to be important, and maybe it's an advantage or maybe it's a disadvantage, is there are very limited rights of review and appeal of arbitration awards. Unlike a jury verdict, which you can take to an appeals court and have the appeals court review it, an arbitration award is presumed not reviewable. That means whatever decision comes out of that arbitration panel, that's a final decision. The parties cannot then go and file a lawsuit, because once they have agreed to arbitrate, they have agreed that they're going to be bound by the arbitrator's decision. So there's no right of appeal. In fact, this is so strong that even if the parties agree between themselves to permit the unhappy party to appeal the decision, they can't do it. They can't do it. If you agree to arbitrate, you are also agreeing to be bound by the arbitration award. Even if the arbitrator comes out completely different from what you advocated or what you believed was the right answer, you don't get to appeal. Now, as I said, arbitration is often used for the resolution of commercial disputes, particularly in the context of international commercial transactions. In terms of large-scale commercial transactions between businesses in different countries, we use arbitration. Now, in certain countries, such as the United States, arbitration is also frequently used in employment situations, employment matters, and also in consumer matters. If you have signed a contract recently, something along the lines of a credit card agreement or your cell phone contract, it is almost certain that you signed an arbitration agreement, that you have agreed to arbitrate any dispute arising out of that relationship. A lot of times people don't realize that, and they get into a dispute with their cell phone provider, and they want to file a lawsuit, and the cell phone provider says, no, you can't. Your only path is arbitration.